All right. So this first one, again, here's our steps for factoring, right? What do we always look for? The greatest common factor, right? A GCF. So is there a GCF? No. No. No GCF. All right. So what's number 2?
Difference of squares.
It's only got how many terms?
2.
So is that what we have this problem? No. The sum or difference cubes? No, only 2, right? It could be one of these because it's got 3 terms, right? Is that a positive perfect square? No. So it's not one of those. So what kind is it? It's a regular. All right. What's my A value? 6. What's my B value? 1. What's my C value? Negative 40. Remember? That's the A, that's the B, and that's the C. When A is not 1, we have to do what with the A and the C? Multiply them. So I have to multiply 6 times negative 40 to start. Which is negative 240, right? Okay. So, what are the factors of negative 240 that add up to positive 1? Are there any?
16 and negative 15.
16 and negative 15. Thanks.
Oh, 1.
Wow. Okay. So those are the 2 factors of negative 240 that add up to positive 1. So I'm going to rewrite this as 6m squared. Instead of this, I'm going to use 16 and negative 15. And you use whatever variables are in the middle here with those numbers. So it's 16mn minus 15mn. And then the C part stays the same, negative 40n squared. So we turned it into number 6, which was what? A grouping problem, right? So that's what we do when we have a 2 or bigger there for A. We'll multiply the A times the C, get a number, and look for factors of that number that will add up to that middle one. Don't let these variables mess with you. Whatever variable's there, there's more than one, or they got A's to the 4th or 6th or whatever, just same variables with those 2 middle numbers. So I'm going to group, usually when we group is this first 2, last 2. And again, since that's a negative, that third term, put it inside the group. Just put a little plus sign between your 2 groups. Now we go back to the beginning. Look for GCFs, right? What's the GCF of the first group? 2m, right? 2 goes into 6 and 16, and we got an m in both, right? At least one m in both. All right? Over here, what did I tell you yesterday that we should always do if that's a minus sign there? Bring it out, right? Now, what goes into these 2? 5 and an n, right? What's 6m squared divided by 2m? 3m. What's 16mn divided by 2m? 8n. Right? What's negative 15mn divided by negative 5n? 3m. And what's negative 40n squared divided by negative 5n? Positive 8n. Did it work out like we want it to? did, right? The red binomials are the same, right? That's what we want to happen when we do this. That means that's one of my factors. That red quantity. My other factor ends up being the GCFs I pulled out, the blue terms. So the 2m minus 5n is my other factor. If I FOIL those, first, that times that is 6m squared. Outside is negative 15mn. Inside is positive 16mn. That gives me the 1, right? And then the last, 8 times negative 5 is negative 40, n times n squared. Okay? So that's kind of a tough one. But if you're understanding that, you're doing good. Okay? Any questions? Eddie, that makes sense?
Not at all.
Not at all? Well, hopefully as we go over some today, it'll help. Who else wasn't here? Dylan, make sense? I think that was it. Oh, Mason too.
That makes sense.
Questions? Good? All right. So what about this second one for warm up? What do we got to do first?
Yeah.
Which is what? So what's 3x squared divided by 3? And what's negative 27 divided by 3? Negative 9. Are we finished?
No.
No. Number 2 on our list that we think about as we factor is a difference of squares. 2 terms, both perfect squares, subtraction. 2 terms, they're both perfect squares. Any variable to an even power is a perfect square. Subtraction. So I have to do another step, like a factor tree. You know, I got my two branches there, and I got to go 2 more branches there. And all we do now is we take square roots. Then square root of x squared is x. Square root of 9 is 3 plus and a minus. And it doesn't matter if you put the minus first and then the plus. That doesn't matter what order. Just one of each. Okay? That's the difference of squares after we took out a GCF. Questions? Okay. So what I'd like to do is just go over our homework. We'll do it together, just so things start sinking in, hopefully. So I need to get my book out. All right, so we started at number 4. Oh, that's my other stuff. All right. I wanted to do this one. Yeah. All right, so I got negative 6y squared minus 54y. Carly, what'd you do first?
Broke it up. Time factors.
You didn't do what that first?
No.
Okay, that's what we should do.
It's not supposed to be a 3 math too.
Number 4, did I copy it wrong?
Yeah, I have 3. I might copy it wrong.
Well, that's it, right? Number 4 on page 52? That's the right one.
Must have copied it wrong.
We might have looked at the wrong one.
Yeah, you copied it wrong.
It's okay.
My apologies.
So, what is the GCF? 6, right? Negative 6 and y. Yeah. Remember, GCF stands for greatest common factor. So we want the biggest. 3 is a common factor, but not the biggest, not the greatest. So then I just divide negative 6y squared by the GCF, negative 6y, and get positive y, right? And negative 54y divided by negative 6y is a positive 9. And that's all the further we can go. Just pull out the GCF. Okay? Going by 4s, number 8. This is one of those tricky ones we talked about yesterday. Think of this as one term. Think of this as the other term. Is there a GCF? Is there something common in the boxes? 2a minus b, right? So that's the GCF. And then you write what's left. Well, what's this times that divided by that? What happens to those two? They cancel, so what's left? X minus 4. Plus, what's this divided by this? X plus 4, right? The 2a minus b's cancel it. Well, if I combine like terms in there, what do I get? Oops, I forgot my name. I just have what if I combine like terms? What's x plus x? X plus x.
2x. Oh,
Just 2x. What happens to the 4s? They cancel. All right. Again, that's kind of a tricky one. It's kind of like a grouping problem.
Why you said if you leave it like that, make the top into, you told me yesterday, if you leave it like that, then
Like this?
yeah.
Well, if usually you are, but if you got like terms in here, you might as well simplify. Anything else, question-wise? Again, that's a tricky one. I won't give you one like that on the quiz, probably. I'm pretty sure I don't. What's next? 12? B squared plus 12b minus 28. All right, is there a GCF?
Nope.
No. So it's not a difference of squares or some are difference of cubes because those only have 2 terms, right? We got 3 terms. This is a trinomial. All right. Are these both positive perfect squares, these 2? No, so it's not one of those special trinomials. We really haven't done one of those yet. So it's a regular trinomial. What's A? 1. 12 for B, negative 28 for C. These are the easy ones because A is 1, right? Right away, I can do 2 sets of parentheses. Only 2 factors of B squared are B and B, right? B times B. What did I tell you yesterday if C was negative? 1 positive, 1 negative, right, Dylan? So I'm looking for factors of negative 28 that add up to positive 12. Well, that is negative 28, but when I add those, oh, it is 12, isn't it?
Yeah.
Oh.
Way to go, Hunter.
Don't do it sometimes.
For some reason in my head, I thought that wasn't going to work. So yeah, that's the 2 factors of negative 28 that add up to positive 12. Okay? That's all we have to do. These aren't anything else that we can do. 16 was next. 57y squared plus y minus 6. All right, is there a GCF? No. Yes, I did. Mhm. I think if you go to, I put a 5 on it, didn't I, at the top?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, so is there a GCF? No. So, difference of squares, sum of difference of cubes? No. Are these both positive perfect squares? No. Regular trinomial, right? But A is 57, B is 1, and C is negative 6. So like that warm-up, what do I have to do with those two? Multiply. What's that equal when you multiply those? Negative 342. So I'm looking for factors of negative 342 that add up to 1. So I need numbers that are like 17, 18, or 19, 20. Is it 18 and 19? Let's check. Someone already checked? Okay. Thanks. So which one? Slow is that? Which one's positive and which one's going to be negative?
Negative 18, being positive, negative 18.
Like that, right? All right. So you're going to have to, you can use your calculator or whatever. If you add those up, they add up to 9. I would probably start with 9. You guys do that, right? If the digits of a number add up to 9, 9 will go into it. Okay? So maybe 9 and you get, 39 and 38, maybe? Is that what it was? And then you might be able to see that in 38 there's a 19. All right, so we rewrite it. 57y squared plus 19y minus 18y. Remember, whatever that variable is goes with those two factors. And then minus 6. So the first and the third one stays the same. That middle one we break up into 2 so we can group it. There's a negative there, so I'm going to put it inside my group. Let's put a plus sign between them. What's the GCF of the first group? Does it 19 go into 57? I think it does. 3 times. And y. So we got 3y plus 1. And then what do I pull out of here? Negative 6, because there's a negative in front of that 18. And then we get 3y plus 1 again. Because negatives divided by negatives are positives. So 3y plus 1 is one of my factors. And then 19y minus 6 will be my other factor. And we can't go any further. Those aren't any special difference of squares or sum of difference of cubes. Okay? Questions? All right, number 20. Okay, we got an x to the 4th. Some people will let that mess with their head. Just treat this as if it was x squared, like we've been doing. Is there a GCF? No. So, a is 1, I can start out right away. If that's x squared, I go x and x. Since it's x to the 4th, what do I do?
X squared, X squared.
Yeah, you just cut it, you just split that exponent in half. Okay? Since that's plus, what did I tell you yesterday? When C was positive, how do I know what the signs are in here? They're both whatever is in front of the B. So these would both be positive. What are the factors of 18 that add up to 11? 9 and 2, or 2 and 9, doesn't matter which order. And I can't do anything else. If this was a minus sign, then it's a difference of squares. Then I could go further. But since it's addition, I can't go any further. Okay? So don't let the x to the fourth and x squared mess with you. Just split it in half when you put it in front there.
So it feels like x cubed.
If it's x cubed, there's probably going to be an x down here where I can factor out an x as a GCF and go from there. Okay? Any other questions? All right. 24. Oh, this was the one where we used that factorization theorem. All right? You just had to tell if you could factor it or not using that little formula. What was the little formula? B squared minus 4AC, right? B is 8, A is 16, C is negative 35. So we're just putting in that little formula. And then what type of number, whoa, what type of number after I do that am I looking for? You guys remember? Yeah, I heard it. Say it louder, please. Perfect square. Thank you. All right. So if you do this problem, or when you do this problem, if your answer is a perfect square, then you say it's factorable. If it's not, you say it's not factorable. That's all they were asking you to do. Okay? So putting that in my calculator, 8 squared minus 4 times 16 times negative 30, not 8, 35, 2304. Okay? So if you're not sure, just do this. Second squared for square root, second answer for the 2304, 48. So that is a perfect square. So we would say yes, it is factorable. Okay? 28, it's not factorable. It's just like that, dude. We won't do that one. Unless somebody wants me to do it. All right. So let's jump to 32. 28 plus 4 is 32. So we've got 2x squared y squared plus xy minus 1. All right, is there a GCF? Now again, I go through those steps every time, okay? It's got 3 terms, so I know it's not number 2 or 3, difference of squares, sum or difference of cubes. This is not both positive perfect squares, so it's not that special trinomial. So it's a regular. So I got to do 2 times negative 1, which is negative 2. And guess what? 2 times negative 1 adds up to positive 1. Thanks. All right. So I'm going to rewrite it. First term doesn't change. And I'm going to put plus, and xy comes along with it. Minus 1 xy minus 1. So I turned it into a grouping problem like we've been doing. Now when A is 2 or bigger, I got to do this. So then I group the first 2, last 2. There's a minus there, so I put it in my group, put a plus sign between those. What's the GCF of the first group? Thank you. What's the GCF of the second group? Negative 1. If nothing's common, you can always write the 1 then. Okay? And we had to use the negative because that third term was negative. So 2x squared y squared divided by 2xy is 1xy. And 2xy divided by 2xy is 1. Negative 1xy divided by negative 1 is a positive 1xy. And negative 1 divided by negative 1 is positive 1. So I've got an xy plus 1. They're the same, so that's one of my factors. And then 2xy minus 1 is the other one. And we're done. That's factors. This making better sense now for those of you that might have been struggling? From what I saw, you guys were doing a good job. You know, when I skim them as I'm checking them. 36 is 8x to the 6th minus 10x cubed minus 3. Okay, so is there GCF? It's got 3 terms, so it's a trinomial. Are these both positive perfect squares? No. So what's 8 times negative 3? Negative 24. Okay. I'll need a negative 12 and a positive 2. Why? Well, why will I need those 2 factors? Griffin? Right. It'll give me a negative 10 in the middle, right, when I add them. Now, this 8x to the 6th stays that. And then it's negative 12. And then again, just use the x cubed. Whatever's there, that's what you use. Plus 2. And then the minus 3. So remember, the first and the last don't change. It's that middle one we change into those 2. Okay, now this one, the third term, doesn't have a minus sign, so I just leave the plus sign out so I don't have to rewrite it. What's the GCF, the first group? 4x cubed, right. What's 8x to the 6th divided by 4x cubed? 2x cubed. And what's negative 12x cubed divided by 4x cubed? Negative 3. What's common to those 2? Nothing, but what do I have to put? 1. That's where we make a mistake sometimes. We don't put anything. We have to put the 1, so we have a number in front of this parentheses. Are these 2 parentheses the same thing?
Yes.
Yeah. So that's one of my factors. What's my other factor? Yeah, we need that plus 1 in there, so we have 2 terms in here. So I could FOIL it to check it if I needed to. If I FOIL these 2, I'll end up with that. Okay? So don't let the 6s and the 3s mess with you. Okay? Look, change it to a grouping problem and just use that variable and exponent in the middle when you split it up. Okay? Questions? All right, 2 more. We might be able to get them both done. 81b squared minus 16c squared. Is there a GCF? There isn't, is there? Is it a difference of squares? Are they both perfect squares and a minus between them? Yeah, it is one of those, right? Okay. They have to have even exponents, and then, 81 and 16 are perfect squares. So I make 2 sets of parentheses when I recognize it's one of those. And then all I do is take square roots. Michael, what's the square root of this? Anything else? Anything else? Yeah. So put 9b in the front. Gavin, what about the back? 4. Thank you. Owen, what do I got to remember then? Plus and minus. Okay. Is this a difference of squares? 9 and 4 are perfect squares. Is the b and the c perfect square? No. I need an even exponent, right? So I'm done. Difference of squares there. 44. Are those both perfect squares? They are. What's the square root of 196? 14. One's a minus, one's a plus. What's the square root of that? Y squared. Just cut that 4 in half. Alrighty? Is that a difference of squares? Is 14 a perfect square? No. Is that helping to go over them like that?
Yeah.
Good. Tomorrow, I'll show you the others types. We'll have some homework and do the same thing Thursday. Go over them. Good job. Thanks for your attention.
I even spell right. Yeah. I've never known how to spell like it.